Hey there guys, welcome back to the deck profile with yours truly, Paul Reisman. Today we are taking a look at my new Olivia deck that was piloted on the channel for a recent feature match against Josh Fury. Without further ado guys, let's jump right into things.
This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, CCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for products, and FoulLibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists, as well as our guest lecturer members King Pearlshine, Vite Ramen, Mognite, and Darren Noblock. Class is in session.
Alright, so you guys know me. You know that I love Olivia, the Thunder Empress. This is one of my favorite rulers of all time. Mostly because her initial support in Assault into the Demonic World was some of the most well-rounded, best supported stuff that I'd seen enforceable up to that point, ever since my my favorite ruler before that, Shayla, the Mermaid Princess. So, of course, it's been about, I don't know how many months it's been since I actually put an Olivia deck profile onto the channel, so we're here. And we're going to be doing something a little bit differently than I have been before, and I can already hear some of the comments saying, you're not playing certain cards, why aren't you doing that? And I have reasons for that, but what this deck attempts to do is to stick barrier resonators and also make use of alter to make use of your resonators, right? One of the things that really feels bad in Olivia is establishing a board and having it wiped, and the purpose for alter in this particular list is to make that feel a little less awkward when it actually happens, because there are times in which you get your board wiped and you just simply lose. Sacrificial alter allows you to sort of reestablish and make things a little bit more disruptive for your opponent, because it can banish and search for a resonator at quick cast speed. So that's not irrelevant, especially in today's metagame where you're able to get certain resonators on the board, and if they stick, they're really problematic for your opponent. So let's take a look and see what we're doing here and some of the changes that I've made to the list so far. So I normally play 2 Dolly, but instead of playing 2, I decided to go all the way back up to 4, and the reason is because of that return up to 1 target non-magic stone, non-J ruler entity to its owner's hand. Notice that it does not say your opponent. So it can be my own stuff too, and I don't know why you would think, why would you need to do that? Well, because Ray Asnable gets cheaper if a card left the field that turn. And so bringing out Dolly through the God's Artifact allows you to essentially get a free bounce, and your Ray Asnable is now a 2-cost 9/9 that stops all enter effects. So that's pretty good. But later in the game too, the bounce effect can be relevant for things like fairy tokens or pesky things that can't be destroyed, right? Because they have Eternal, which is, you know, surprisingly relevant right now because of a certain 16-cost card. You might have seen that in the feature match. That was very relevant for a lot of reasons. But Dolly is just a really solid 1-drop. It always has been, and it's a really good Marvel rare too. And so the fact that it even has Barrier, Barrier plus Institute usually means good things will happen to you. And so my thought is, you know, a 10/10 barrier resonator that can come in and bounce things for 1 is pretty good. Next, I'm playing Aspiring Diva. So this is one of the new cards that we got out of Crimson Moon's Battleground. This is really good. I think it was specifically intended to work with Veer, our other mermaid favorite, right? So you can look for chance and produce will to play those chance. What's helpful though is that this is flexible enough that you can run it in control strategies like those in blue. So Aspiring Diva, I'm running this over Percival, because even though she doesn't dig as deep, if she's able to find something like a Muse Staring At or a Fish Drive, which is another re-inclusion in the deck, or even Surging Lightning, all of a sudden this card has a lot more value than Percival did. So she's really good for that. Plus she's just on theme, which I think is just really cute. But more or less, she's just really good for the deck in general, and is probably going to be maining this at least at 3 or 4 copies going forward. I'm playing 4 Ray Asnable. In my head, my turn 2 is always Ray Asnable. If I don't have that in hand, I'm playing something else, but this is the ideal play, right? I go, I play Dolly, I bounce it back to my hand, and then I just play Ray Asnable on 2, and then I just have this 9/9 that you can't kill very easily unless you somehow manage to board wipe. Now, we definitely have those effects in the new decks that are out, so this card is not nearly as oppressive as it used to be, but it's still a big threat. It can still make your opponent say, like, well, I can't reveal my 7 kings. So this thing has a lot of value, turns off Lorites, turns off a lot of stuff in the format. So this thing is really solid still. It's definitely more threatened, but I think that's okay, and it's probably good that it's threatened in a lot of ways. I'm playing the Alter Hook package. Now, this might seem a little stretchy. This might seem like, well, Paul's just leaning into the meme. Again, I kind of explained what Alter is trying to do in this deck in particular. If I wanted to go full Hook combo, this deck would look a lot different. So Hook is just sort of there as like an additional control card to either walk back my opponent's cards, so they have either less resonators on the field or less stones to work with, and against some decks that just wins you the game outright. But in some situations, being able to fetch out a Hook to bounce something like, I don't know, Alice, Avatar of the Seven Lands, seems pretty good to me. So Hook is very good for that reason. And you know, if he's in here and he's in my hand, so be it. But for the most part, I think he's just fine at 2 copies. If I'm running Alter and I want to get out something like a Ray Asnable, that's also an alternative route. Barring any sort of you staring at shenanigans, but I do think Hook being in here is enough of a threat that your opponent just may not see it coming. So it's very fun to have him in the deck, and it's fun that we get to use him again. Playing 3 Fish Drive. So I recognize the synergy that Fish Drive, you know, getting for 1 copy, getting 6 7/7s onto the field with your Institute is probably pretty good. Right, and this is routinely coming out right around then. This is threatening lethal on board, like almost immediately once it gets cast. So this is something your opponent does have to definitely deal with, which is not impossible. Again, Forcible is a pretty fair game. So the fact that Fish Drive can just happen, and if your opponent doesn't have an answer, it's just sort of over, is kind of okay for me, because all I had to do was invest an Inspiring Diva and a Fish Drive to threaten lethal for 1, which is pretty good. And then Institute sticks around way longer than it ever should, and so if they get rid of my stuff on board, they're using a board wipe for a 1-drop card, essentially, when I have all of these other barrier resonators like Dolly and Ray Asnable, etc. I'm also playing Muse's Staring At. This is one of the new blue cards, probably a staple blue card from here on out. This stops any cheat-ins or any cost reduction effects, and it has Remnant. So this thing is really good against Branhart. I would say this is probably the main reason it's in the deck, is because Branhart wipes a little bit easier than all of the other rulers, and that's kind of understating it a little bit here, but Muse's Staring At is really good for just making sure your opponent doesn't get to play things. And this also affects tokens, so if your opponent is playing stuff like the Virtuous skill to get you 2 Light Fairy tokens, you just cast this in response and they just don't get their tokens, right? Which is definitely relevant against something like Tina, but it's also really relevant against Tina because they're putting in stuff that is a little bit cheaper. Surging Lightning, the best 1-drop in the deck outside of Dolly. This thing doesn't target, so it doesn't stop things that have Eternal, but it does get around things that have barriers. So this card is just absolutely amazing. Definitely one of Olivia's best cards. Right next to Pulsing Thunder, this is the board wipe for either J resonators your opponent controls, or additions and regalia they control, or if you just want to blow up your own stuff, don't do it. I'm playing 2 Lokis Insight for the same reason that Fiola worked in previous formats. Lokis Insight can work before your opponent draws their card on their first turn. I do this against Josh in game 2, where I just threaten Lokis Insight and then I get to see his whole hand. The problem with that is his whole hand is gas, and I don't have ways to stop it. So Lokis Insight against certain decks is just really powerful. This might come out for other resonators in the future, but this is just a really good, in my opinion, a very good turn 1 play. You can go into a 3rd or even a 4th copy in the sideboard if that's something you want to do, but this card is, I think, really powerful right now. It's able to get certain things out of your opponent's hand, like Girl Staring At, Fair spells, other things like that, that your opponent just won't have on turn 1. So it feels pretty potent to me. We're playing our basic green defensive package with Fair spells and Lorites. We talked about Alter a little bit, and of course Institute. I went to the Institute package a long time ago with Olivia because It just felt like this is absolutely a card the deck needs as like a mid-range control strategy to just sort of close out games. It doesn't really do that well on its own, and so going into Bug felt pretty necessary to me. Because we're playing Institute, we have to play a certain kind of stone lineup. We're playing still 4 Magic Stone of the Tides. This is my way of getting around needing Moonshade, right? But also wanting an Omni Stone. I don't like Knowledge Stone in this particular list because it means that I do not get a turn 1 blue tempo play. So I can't play Aspiring Diva on 1, which feels really bad. I can't threaten Surging Lightning. I can't play Fish Drive. Like, that just feels really awkward, and I really do need the blue in the deck to be constant. So having Magic Stone of Tides allows me to do that. And there are ways to play the deck in which you don't need to produce the other colors very often, and that's kind of what the strategy has been. Plus, if you do have multiples of these, you can just get them out of your Magic Stone area with Research Institute and grab something else, like potentially a Wind Moon Fragment. It's your deep wood, but instead of being a Magic Stone, it foresees you 1, which is actually really relevant for the deck. There are some cards you just don't want to see, and it just helps you mitigate some things that would have been otherwise dead draws. Same reason I'm playing Secret Stone with the Ethereal Moon. It's a Darkness Stone, so it allows me to play Altar a little bit more efficiently, and also Magic Stone Research Institute more consistently as well. There is a little bit of an issue where if you grab 2 of these off the top, you can be set back a turn, which is really unfortunate, so we might be changing this down to either 1 or adding in something else. One stone that's not in here is the Light Moon Fragment instead of the Wind Moon Fragment. So I have access to white and blue as well, just in case I happen to find myself in a position where I have a blue stone and I want to do Pulsing Thunder, but I don't have the random I don't have a dolly, right, to de-randomize the Tidestone. So it's there for that particular reason, and the same thing for the Moonshade. It's just there to round out my Omni Stones and make sure that I always have blue on 1, but I don't want more than this because I just don't want to burn myself to death. But guys, this is Alter Olivia. This is my take on it. This is a little bit more of a conservative approach. It's not the wombo combo goodness that you would like, but man, Olivia continues to be one of my favorite decks for all of the right reasons. And so if you love decks that like to go back and forth, that reward creativity, let us know down in the comment section down below and give us a like on the video as well. If you like content like this, you're going to want to hit subscribe and ring that bell as well for more Force of Will content from us here at Ruler School. That all being said, guys, my name is Paul. You've just seen a deck profile. I'll catch you next time. Peace.